think the world would be a better place if we all embraced a little bit of this. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Sean. How impactful and powerful, and I'm so glad you all were here to hear that message. Our next presenter is equally as fabulous as everybody else who I've said was fabulous or amazing as well. Put your hands together for Shelby Shumate. All right, everybody, can everybody hear me? Okay, awesome. So, I am going to talk to you guys today about traumatic brain injuries. So just a little bit about the basics first. Everybody should be pretty familiar with their brain, right? It sits in their head. It is the most vital organ in our body. It is responsible for all aspects of our life. And just a little bit about the anatomy. Human bodies are amazing. We have this really amazing skull in our heads that protects our brain. And we also have this layer of protective fluid inside our skull. And what this does is our brain is kind of floating around inside our head. And every time that we move or we hit our head, this layer of fluid cradles our brain and moves it so it doesn't hit the walls of our skull. However, if we hit our head with enough force, our brain can hit the walls of our skull, and this could cause an injury. And just another little aspect of anatomy, the brain is in 3 different parts: the cerebellum, the cerebrum, and the brainstem. And depending on what part of your brain you hit, you could have different signs and symptoms of a traumatic brain injury. And through the rest of these slides, if I say TBI, that's just short for traumatic brain injury. So a mild TBI or concussion, this is what you're probably most familiar with. I don't know about you, but I know lots of people who've had concussions. It's actually pretty common. And this is something that is a blow, a jolt, a bump to our heads that causes an injury. So our brain is bouncing around inside our skull, potentially hitting multiple sides of our skull that cause damage to our brain cells. It's usually not life-threatening. There's a lot of common symptoms: confusion, difficulty concentrating, nausea, headache, sensitivity to light. These are things that you're probably familiar with, as they are fairly common as far as concussions go. It can also cause problems with sleep and changes to mood. Some people just seem kind of off. If you know someone really well and they have a concussion, you may think, they just don't really seem like themselves, and maybe you're kind of worried. It's better to say something. A lot of times people with concussions may not understand that they are displaying these symptoms. A mild TBI and concussion can occur over a long period of time, from weeks to months. The symptoms that we talked about before can occur even days after an injury. They may not occur right away. And what is the most important takeaway from concussions is that instructions on returning to activities is really paramount on healing our brain. And we know a lot of that because of sports. Anyone who knows me pretty well knows that I don't know really much about football. But the past couple of decades, we've had some amazing advances in information about concussions and TBIs through football or contact sports. And this is great because we have more information that shows us how detrimental concussions can be to our daily living. For example, if you have if you've seen this is just an example of a return to play protocol. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but we have seen an uptick of information related to recurrent concussions. And what this means is that somebody has gotten a diagnosis of a concussion and they are continuing to partake in those activities that may result in more bumps or blows to the head, and that just elongates healing time and may create problems that change in the future as well and will continue to stay there. So what return to play protocol is, and again, we know a lot about this from football, and this is very common in schools and colleges, universities across the country, is a protocol set in place through all sports for that activity, where if a player has a concussion or has received a blow or bump to the head, they are immediately taken out of that activity. And until they receive a thorough evaluation by a physician, they cannot return to that activity. If they have found to have sustained a concussion and have concussion symptoms, they must go through a series of days, potentially even weeks, where they have to rest and not participate in that activity before they can return. If they return and they also start displaying symptoms again, then they go through the same thing. They start all over, and they cannot participate in that activity until the symptoms have resolved. And again, this can potentially take weeks and weeks for your body and your brain to heal from a concussion. So it's really important that we understand how amazing it is that we can be evaluated for this and take the time to heal our brain properly so that we don't have lasting effects of a concussion. Because, unfortunately, moderate or severe TBI can result in long-lasting issues. And so this is a traumatic brain injury that results the same thing from a bump or blow to the head, but this is more common in accidents such as motor vehicle accidents. These injuries can be life-threatening, and that's something that is also occurs with a period of unconsciousness as well. I don't know if everyone's ever seen Grey's Anatomy, but I used to watch Grey's Anatomy all the time, and this is something that I feel like happened with every single accident that they brought into the hospital. So the symptoms of this can vary. So it's changes with thinking, learning, motor control. This is somebody who may not be able to think critically at all in their day-to-day lifestyle. And also behavior disorders. So this could also change the way that they think about things, their relationships to others as well, how you're communicating because of the injuries that you have sustained. Long-term effects. So this is this data here doesn't seem very positive at all. You can see here that out of those who have received a severe TBI diagnosis, most of them did become worse afterwards. And this is just because the brain, again, is the most important and vital part of our body. And if you are damaging those brain cells and those parts of our bodies, you can have permanent damage. So 57% were permanently disabled after a severe TBI. 33% rely on others for direct care. 29% are not satisfied by life. You can see that 22% also stayed the same after receiving diagnosis of severe TBI, and only 26% improved. So this has a lot of social and economic impacts on a person and their family. For example, social impacts. Let's say after an accident, you just aren't the same anymore. You have a lot of issues with communication, with relationships with others, or having issues with substance use disorders or mood disorders. So in that aspect, your life has changed, and you might possibly never get better. And so that's why it's really important that we understand the impacts that a TBI can have on you as well as the family. As also economic impacts. You can see, like I said, 33% rely on care of others. This could mean that you have to change your whole lifestyle, moving in with somebody else, hiring a caretaker, trips to the hospital or trips to the doctor's office, medication costs. All that stuff can really change the impact that this can have on your life. And what I wanted to mostly talk about for this, not only the physical and mental health aspects of something like this, but just in our community, Valdez is amazing. I'm sure you all know it was crazy windy and it is super slick outside. So I am very klutzy. Again, if any of you know me, I fall down all the time. So it's super slick outside, if I fall down and I hit my head, what I want to say as a community is, the next day, man, my head really hurts. I just feel really off. I'm tired all the time. Lights hurt. I just can't focus at work. Take that time, share that information with others, and say, hey, you know what? I don't know if I think it died. Sorry.
Like this one?
This is where it's really important to understand, hey, if I hurt myself, if I hit my head and I'm just feeling really off, go to that doctor's appointment. Advocate for yourself, advocate for your family, and say, you know what, I need to talk to somebody about this so that I can take the time for myself and heal my brain properly. Because I don't want these things to last longer. I don't want to be affected for months if I can help it. So a lot of follow-up with a physician is super important with this as well. And again, just because we are so active in Valdez, we have all these opportunities for wonderful outdoor adventures. If you see somebody, I've done it too, riding a bike without a helmet, maybe say, hey, it's a good idea to wear a helmet. I don't always know when I'm gonna fall down, and you can never predict something like that. But if I'm going rollerblading and I'm not wearing a helmet, the chances that I can hurt myself are going to be increased. So if you see somebody going out riding a snow machine, four-wheeling, skiing, snowboarding, take the time to stand up and say, hey, I think it's a good idea you should wear a helmet, because TBIs can affect us physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. So it's really important that we stay safe and advocate for ourselves and others. And that's all I have for you.